Hey everybody, this is Off the Wall. What is Off the Wall? Well, it's a project that I guess presented itself 2017, I think is when I started. I met Eric when, let's see, let me pull up my notes. It was a little chilly out, so winter time, I believe. So it says here I met Eric at about 9:45 on March 28th, 2017. And I met him outside of this coffee shop in Fresno. There's actually like three are in this area, Central Valley of California, that I decided to go to on this day. Never been there before. I actually had gone to a medical appointment earlier and was on my way to shoot photography of Fresno, architecture and things like that in downtown. So before I got out there, I wanted to get some coffee and found this little spot, cool little coffee shop, and sat down with my coffee and look outside, and this guy rolls up on a cruiser bike or something, and looked pretty cool. He's got like a one dangly earring. It's like a turquoise earring, a hat on, like an Air Force hat with a ponytail, gray ponytail. He's got gray hair. Smiling from ear to ear. I think he had some shades on. He came in, ordered his coffee, and went and sat outside and just, relaxed back and was enjoying his coffee. So I thought for a minute, should I go, interrupt this guy's relaxing moment to kind of talk, and wanted to find out more about him. So I went outside and sat down at the same table and sparked up a conversation about his bike, and that led to what on the channel here is the emergency episode. That was actually the first time I ever recorded Eric, and the funny thing is, I had my Canon, 5D DSLR big camera in my hands when I met him, and I don't know if that's what sparked this conversation or that's what kind of drew him, into wanting to talk to me too, but he started. I guess I asked him, what are you out doing today? It's kind of morning time, so he said, I'm headed over. I was riding my bike over to drop off these letters, or a letter, and I don't know if I asked or if he just kind of started talking about these letters, and he had one in his bag that he was in his backpack. He pulls it out and started telling me about, the history behind these letters and kind of the way that he saw them. And I think maybe he asked if I wanted to hear it. So I said yes, but in him explaining to me why he was sending out these letters, I thought, well, I could record you and get it out to a lot more people. That way your original intent of getting people to write you back or to converse with them, you can reach a lot more people on the internet, on YouTube, than you can trying to write, a handwritten letter to people that don't have time to read that. So he thought it was a good idea as well. And the funny thing is, my big camera, actually, the battery didn't charge when I thought it was charging, so it was dead. And I just used my iPhone, which actually probably worked a lot better anyway. So I recorded him right there. First time I ever met the guy. Didn't know if he was crazy or not. Even when it was done, I listened to what he was saying, and it sounded like a normal person. And when the recording of him was done, we got to talking about, hey, what if I were to, be able to record the rest of your stories? He told me he had like 40 or 50 of these letters that he'd sent around for the past, like, since I think early 80s, so like 30, 40 years. And I said, yeah, give me your info, we'll try to work something out. So I left there. I think I didn't go shoot pictures because my battery was dead. I went home and it was kind of a weird situation. I think I told my family about it, and they're like, it's weird. Sounds like something you'd get into. But so I sent him my info, and he sent me his address, and the next week I set up a time, and I came and started recording him. And I went to his house. He lives in a southeast Fresno, which if you're from this area, it's not the greatest part of Fresno, which doesn't have too many great parts anyway. But it's in a seedy part of town that doesn't get a whole lot of funding, let's say. So going there, I'm thinking, man, this is going to be interesting. But really, I grew up in, not in the lap of luxury, so it wasn't a big deal. But I showed up at his house, beautifully kept home, beautiful garden and cool art all over the place. And I sat down and I recorded him. I think that first day I was at his house, I recorded maybe like 4 letters, and then it just went from there. About once every other week or so, I'd make my way up there to Fresno. It's about a 45-minute drive, and then I would record 4 or 5 letters, and and then we'd also eat and hang out. But so yeah, that happened for over about a year and a half, and the last recording I have of Eric is, let's see, Eric's last recording was March 21st, 2018. That's the last time I recorded him. And then in May, I believe, I can't remember his exact date of his death, but yeah, Eric passed away. No one knew that he was, well, no one close to him really knew that he had a serious heart problem going on. As far as I know, no one knew if he knew or not, but I think he did for sure, especially now looking back at stuff that we would talk about and things he would say. So he was already ready. He was already ready to die. He didn't want to really live past 75, which on June 5th of this year, 2020, he would have been 75. So he actually died a couple of years earlier than that. But he always said, I've got a tight, the roof is good for, another 15 years, and the paint's good for this long, and I paid this off until this long. So he was really planning for his death, and definitely not afraid of it, and embraced it, and wanted, he didn't see death as a punishment of any kind. It was just another chance at life, in a sense, for him. So I haven't rewatched all of the recordings since I recorded them, but I know that when I was recording them, looking back now, knowing that he died from that, you can kind of even see him. He's coughing and just little stuff, talking about waking up in the middle of the night with a heavy weight on his chest. Lots of little things that if I knew now what I knew then, it would have been easy to spot. But he's in a better place, or in a good place. Very interesting story. The whole thing kind of boggles my mind. I've never done anything like this before. I've shot photos and done photography work here and there as a hobby, but never recorded anybody or done sound or video editing. So it's all been new to me. So sorry if it's annoying sounds and things like that while we're recording. We tried to make the best of it. And the last thing I want to mention is the likelihood of this, project working out, happening, whatever you want to call it, was so small, and everything aligned. First off, I normally worked a Monday through Friday, 40-hour work week, and at the time, and for the whole time I was recording him, I was on a special 4 days on 10-hour day work schedule, which gave me 3 days, a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Wednesday off of work. So those are days where my kids were at school or gone, my wife was at work, and I had a lot of free time to myself. Otherwise, I would have had Saturday, Sunday off, and it wouldn't have worked. There's no way I would have been able to get up there that often. And to be honest with you, knowing now that he died that day, I wouldn't have been able to finish it in that sense. I was going up there religiously because I had those days off. The timing, like I said, he died maybe a month after I recorded the very last story, maybe 2 months after that. It's almost like he was waiting. Somehow he had control, over when he died. Obviously didn't necessarily, and he was waiting to get his thoughts out. He was waiting to finish, and he did, and then he died. And the way that he died was also interesting. He had a main water line burst, or had a root grow through it that went up to his house. And he called the plumber, and they said, it's going to be this much to fix it, and half that's for digging down in your yard. And he said, well, what if I get, what if you don't have to dig it out? And they said, well, it'll be about half that. So he said, well, okay. He went out and dug down, and dug all the way down to the main line. It's about 5 feet down, and you got to dig about 6 feet. So essentially what Eric did is dig his own grave. So he dug out this main water line, and then called the plumber and said, hey, it's ready. The plumber comes over, and the plumber says, okay, we got it from here. And Eric says, no, I want to kind of see what you're doing. I want to learn. So he's in this hole with these guys as they're fixing the plumbing. And they're talking and chatting back and forth, and he's in there. Actually, he was in there cutting out and busting up any of the roots that he was finding after he dug. So he was in there still kind of working. And the plumber said he was working on the piping, and Eric was kind of in the back of the hole. And he just stopped responding to him, and he turned around and thought he'd fallen asleep, and went to shook him, and no response. And then, kept trying to wake him up, but he'd already passed, had a heart attack. So, I'd like to say I'm not one for conspiracy theories or that type of thing, but, after this whole thing, it really changed my thoughts on a lot of things in the world, and how much control we have over things. It's weird. But either way, hopefully you guys like the channel. If there's things I can do to improve it, or any information, any suggestions, please give them out. And thank you for subscribing and liking anything. And have a great week. Love you guys.